So the first principle, there's nothing, or I should say few things, is inherently fearful. Now, how does that make our fear of things change just a little bit? Let me do this. The second fear is fears are learned. Those are E's. Fears are learned. So nothing's inherently fearful, and fears are learned. Think of something that you find that is a fear for you. That you think, oh man, I'm really afraid to do that thing. When you think of these two principles, what does that do to your fear a little bit?
So I have one example. I've done theater a lot throughout my life, and auditions are really hard because you get up there, you perform in front of the people who are putting on the show, and they're judging you to see if you fit for the show. And every time I'd go into an audition, I was like, oh crap, they're judging me at this, it's going to be so bad. And then I did a lot of workshops with directors, and they were like, we're not there to get after you. We want you to succeed. We're sitting there cheering for you. And once I started realizing that, I'm like, okay, wait, they're not a scary thing. They're like actually like cheering you on, and it's a good thing. And so it wasn't as scary doing auditions after that.
See, what I hear you saying is you realize some wiggle room. You realize you could think about it differently. See, a lot of people say, I'm scared to death of spiders, for example. Or I'm scared to death of snakes. Or I'm scared to death of heights. Or I'm scared to death of, and you feel, and they think they're attached to that fear. That there's no possible getting out of that fear. I'm scared to death to ask a guy out. Or I'm scared to death to interview for this job or audition. But if we recognize, first of all, that it's not the thing that we're doing, it's not the audition that's causing you to have fear, it's how you're thinking about it, which what I heard you say is, I stopped thinking that was causing me fear, and I chose to realize I could think about it in a different way. Yes? Now, going along with that, if your fears are learned, by definition, what can you do with that? If a fear is learned.
I think you do the thing you're afraid of. So you can
so
yourself that you can do it.
So you've gotten to the solution. Go back to this for a second. If a fear is learned,
then you can unlearn it.
It's unlearnable, not unlearnable. You can unlearn a thing. You're not stuck to it, right? I work with so many people who say, well, I just can't go anywhere near spiders. Like it's a genetic thing. You know, my parents were afraid of spiders, and their parents were afraid of spiders, so I must be afraid of spiders.
I work with kids, and their favorite thing when we go outside is to look for bugs or spiders, and if like a bee's flying around their face, they're just like, oh, and I'm like freaking out inside, but I don't want to like teach them to freak out, but like they haven't learned yet
Yeah.
to be afraid of those things, and it's kind of cool to see, I guess.
It is cool to see, and it reminds us, wait a second, if this 5-year-old, I don't know what age group,
Usually
3-year-old,
4,
if
yeah.
this 3-year-old's not, why should I be? But at some point, we've decided whatever fears that we have we're stuck to them. But the psychologists tell us there are really only 2 fears that are with us when we're born, that are kind of I don't know, inherited isn't the right word, but they're part of our DNA. Do any of you know what those two fears are? Think of a newborn, an infant. What would an infant naturally be afraid of, do you think?
Not being nurtured or loved.
Yeah, they don't have that sense yet. That's a little bit down the road where they develop that. But I mean right out of the womb. Mm-mm. Falling? Falling is one. Where they're just right out of the womb, you can see it when when you kind of go like this, the child goes, right? And the other one is loud noises. There's something about those two things that psychologists say those two might be part of our DNA. All the other fears that we have, at some point we've learned them. How did we learn them? Two places. Where did we learn them from? What would you say? How would you finish? How do these kids who aren't afraid of them, the bees and the bugs, at what point or what was it where it became a learned fear?
Well, as soon as one of them gets stung by a bee, they probably afraid of it. And maybe the experience of others, like different reactions.
Right. If your mom goes, ah, to a spider, it's more likely you'll go, oh, that must mean that spiders, and she does this. Okay, I got it. That's how I'm supposed to act. It's learned. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that or anything wrong with you. But what we have to do is start to realize I'm not stuck to that fear, whatever it is. Because the thing that I know, the thing that I see over and over again is we say we want something. Imagine this for a second. Let's say that Amy's my goal. Okay? Be a good goal to have. Knowing what a wonderful person you are. Whatever that goal is, because fear has to do with down the road. But what happens, what we do is we go, oh no, but what about, and we throw in some unknown. That includes some sense of there might be pain. And so what we do is we put a big wall between us and the thing we want. And we get the wall. Instead of getting Amy, we get the wall. Oops, sorry. Do you get that? We don't get what we want. We get something we'll call, oh, I was just too afraid. Now, it seems to me we'd be better off getting what we want.